And here I am back again, Patrice Bouidi-Bela for Panasonic Live at IFA 2012. This segment is dedicated to Lumix. And as you can already see here on the table, we have a bunch of lenses, including some things saying ISA Award. I have no clue what this ISA Award stands for, therefore I need my expert, who again brings in that professional. So please welcome again Mark and Dean.
Hi, Patrice.
So this is my expert from Panasonic.
Hi, good to see you again.
Mark. And when it comes to professional photography, especially working for Getty Images, it has to be Dean. And I had to admit that I have no clue. No clue what this silver cubish object stands for. It's an ISA award.
Well, this silver cubist object is the ISA award for best lens. This is the 12 to 35 millimeter lens. We won the award for the UHR, which is the ultra high refractive lenses that we use in the lens itself, also for its metal body and for technology such as nanosurface coating, which reduces blurring and ghosting as well. So yeah, we just recently won that award, and here it is live at IFA.
You just felt like showing off a bit with, I mean, Dean is familiar with it because you had the chance just to test all of the lenses during
I
the
actually
Olympic
recommended
Games.
it before, but I didn't know it had won an award, so I feel that I've justified recommending
It is justified that it received that award.
Yeah, I justified it by saying, yep, it's won an award, which I didn't know about until now.
So may we say then Dean approved at this moment?
It's approved.
But when it comes from the outside, I mean, the outside of a lens or a camera, is that really important to you as a photographer? Because all you really
not really
care for is like the picture itself.
Like I mentioned before as well, I don't like. I'm not a white cameraman. As long as they're black and I can blend into the crowd, then I'm happy with that. That's fine with me. So yeah, I'm not looks. As long as it does the job, that's all I needed.
Okay, but so just to make sure next time that he gets a camera, don't make it white.
Yeah.
Other than that, so let me kindly ask for my tablet PC where I have all the questions stored, and let's start right away with the first one coming from John Evans. John Evans would like to know, if I fit a 3D lens to a Lumix camera, does it turn every Lumix into a 3D camera?
A 3D lens on a
First of all, like the G, it's just a lens that works for the G cameras, and not for the compact.
It doesn't. No, the compact cameras will have a 3D effect that you can actually create with.
Except the 3D one.
Except the 3D one, absolutely. You've been revising really well, Patrice. Very impressed. The 3D one has twin lenses built into the actual camera itself. The compact, such as the TZ30, has a 3D effect that you can produce a 3D kind of footage within that. And then, yes, we have a 3D lens. We don't have it here, but it's part of our range. The 3D lens will shoot side-by-side images, and you can use that on the G5. It records in a format called MPO, which is multi-picture object, which is the 3D standard file format as JPEG and RAW would be for 2D. So G5, the G3 and the GF5 are some of the cameras that you can use that on as well.
So for all the G lenses, as just said, you can use that 3D lens, and then it turns into a 3D camera.
And it turns it into 3D, yeah. And it records 2 images side by side. So if you've got then a 3D television at home, you can then play that back and get the 3D effect.
I mean, did you also had a chance to use the 3D lens? I mean, I would expect that you had it with you, as you said.
I didn't actually.
That's it? The only lens you didn't use?
I didn't.
You didn't want to carry a fifth camera on you.
I didn't want to. It's like with video as well. You know, someone said, "Oh, can you do some video as well?" But I think when you do something like the Olympics, you sort of want to focus just on the one thing. You don't want to be shooting 3D. You also think of, as you'll see from my photos, they're usually quite. I try to keep them as clean as possible. So clean backgrounds, and when you shoot 3D, you actually think in a different way. You look for more layers. So you're looking for something in the foreground, background. You know, you're looking beyond just the subject. You know, you're looking in the whole thing. So you actually you stand in a different angle. And you think in a different way when you shoot 3D. So when it was suggested, "Oh, would you like to do some 3D or some video?" I said, "Look, I'd like to just focus on the photography side of it, just the plain old-fashioned 2D photography." So that's what I did. So no, I didn't do any 3D.
I just wanted to pull your leg a bit because I really think that because of one lens, it doesn't make you less of a professional photographer.
Thank you.
I'm just saying.
I appreciate that.
I'll give you credit for being a photographer, just a photographer without shooting videos.
Yes.
So, John Evans, this has been your answer. Continuing with a question coming from Marco. It's a hot topic. It's about lenses. I mean, we pretty much already talked about the lenses, even award-winning lenses. Is there anything else that you want to add, Mark?
Well, the lenses that we've got here were all used by Dean at the Olympics, so I mean, I can explain quite a lot about it. But how did you
Maybe we're gonna have some questions that are gonna pick up some specific ones.
Well, I just wanted to say, like, I pretty much had this lens on me all the time. This was always on one of the cameras. 7 to 14 mil, great quality, obviously compact, and you know it's very flexible in terms of wide shots. And even when you wanted a fan fairly close, you could get right in and then sort of show the background as well. So this was actually quite useful. And also, I use it at the football as well. When I set up a remote camera again, I set up a remote camera behind the goal, and I've got a photo on there somewhere as well with just of someone taking a shot.
That we have,
it's in there. It's mixed in amongst the rest of the photos. But yeah, it's pretty much put it right near the net, so you don't put it too close to the net because the net will, if it hits, you'll break your lens, which you don't want to do. So you sort of pull the net out, you sit your camera down, pre-focus it on where the goal mouth action would be, and so I use this as well, so that you get the whole goal and a lot of the stadium in as well. So very, very good lens as well. So that was highly recommended. Yeah. And
in case that you have any more questions considering the lenses in general, don't hesitate. Do ask them here, of course. Thank you, Marky, for that hot topic. Continuing with Simone Jones, what would you consider an entry-level all-purpose lens to get me started? Probably the 7 to 14?
Well,
right away?
Personally, I would say this one, the 12 to 35. But when you say entry-level, I'm guessing that means cost is probably a bit different. So for me personally, if I was going to recommend one lens to get, I would go
just
for the 12.
Just go straight for the big one?
Yeah, because with these kind of lenses, you're going to keep them for a long time, and if you invest the money in a good quality lens, it'll pay back in the quality of the imagery. So, investing money obviously in a good body, but also in a good quality lens, you'll notice in your photography, and also you'll notice that 5 years down the track you've still got a good lens. So, I would always recommend going for a good lens.
Well, but let's say Simone has a son or a daughter that wants to get into photography.
Yeah. And
maybe she doesn't want to really spend right away the euros for the professional one.
Well, for me, again, another lens I used, which I didn't use it that much, but I did use it at the start, was the 20 mil, the pancake lens, yeah. Which I don't think we have here.
Got it.
But yeah.
Every lens that we're talking about is not on this table.
Yeah, the pancake lens it's very small, so you won't sort of knock it, if you're walking around. And I'm not sure on price, but I don't know. It's not the most expensive lens, is it?
No, when you compare it to say the new 12 to 35 mil lens, it isn't. And again, when you purchase one of the Lumix G cameras, you'll get a standard kit lens, or what we showed earlier, the new X lens, which is the retractable zoom. So you do get a good lens with it anyway, or if you buy body only, then you can obviously add to that. But I agree with Dean that the pancake lenses are bright, they're fast, they're lightweight as well. So obviously that goes in conjunction with the body of the camera, and for everyday shooting.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is, the other thing is, when you have a fixed focus, a fixed focal length. It also makes you think more about your photography. With sometimes you can get a bit lazy with the zoom as well, because you just think, I'll stand here and I'll zoom in or zoom out. But when you've actually got the 20 mil or a fixed focus, like I had with the 45 or the 25 or the 20 mil, when you use these kind of lenses, it actually makes you think more about your photography as well. So again, recommended 20 mil then. Yeah, basic 20 mil.
But a question I would like to ask towards the two of you: do you have any idea how come that most of the people always want to have zoom functions in the camera? They always consider that if a camera is not able to zoom, then it's not a camera. How come?
Well, for me personally, it's most people don't pick up a camera like I would pick up, or like a photographer would pick up a camera. So they're just thinking, what can cover the most range without me moving as much as possible. So I think
Soil
it's ease.
laziness, that's
Ease.
what it is.
Well, I was going to say ease, but you can put it to laziness.
Laziness, that's
Yeah.
what I would call it then.
Yeah. So.
All right, Simone, thank you for your question. I shall continue with the next one coming from Zotrope. Do your mirrorless cameras have viewfinders or only displays? Once again, depending on the camera, right?
Viewfinders and only.
Do your mirrorless cameras have
displays.
viewfinders or only displays? As the G5 has both.
Yeah, the G5 has the new EVF now, which is the electronic viewfinder, which also has the sensors. So every time you bring your eye up to it, what you see in the live view goes into the sensors. So you've got that built in as well. We've also seen the GF5. Now that doesn't have a viewfinder, and there is no part of the body for that to fit on. But that is specifically made for a certain market. You've then got the GX1, and previous to that, you've got GF2 and GF1, etc. That will have a hot shoe where you can actually fit different electronic viewfinders on the top. That is an additional accessory, but you can add that to it as well. So you've got the best of LCD, and if then you want to add a viewfinder, then you can do that as well. And of course, the GH2 as well has both.
So it depends on the models, but most of them have both. So thank you, Zotrope, for this question. Coming to Anna, which models work underwater? The VA20, apparently, but which is not a mirrorless.
No,
some sort it is, but
from a Lumix point of view,
we've got one here, don't we?
do we have one?
Thank you. This is
TZ?
from a Lumix G point of view. Unfortunately, we don't have any that are underwater, but keeping in line with the topic here as well, with Dean's experience with sport photography, this is the active camera. This is the FT4. It's built for basically all the elements. You can put this underwater up to around 12 meters. It's shock-proof, so I'm not going to demonstrate that and drop it, but it is shock-proof. It's sealed, so it's also dust-proof as well. And, ready for this? It's got a compass, a barometer, an altimeter, so the compass will get you home, as well as your sat-nav.
Or maybe you don't want to go home, and then you know what to avoid.
Exactly, GPS, so you've got 1 million landmark locations built in as well, so if you wanted to use that for, say, online mapping. And then
For Dean, for example, he mentioned earlier today that when he was like in London for the Olympic Games, that there was this one guy, the supervisor, who showed you like where to stay to just get the perfect shot.
Well, I mean, this is obviously a very good tourist camera, but I was going to say for underwater stuff, if you're doing surfing or you're at the beach and all that kind of stuff, would be perfect.
Does it happen from time to time that you use also like a compact camera? Something like the LX5 or LX7, which is
more
like
more for a personal thing, but not for work.
But as a photographer, where can you say that? Okay, this is for purpose. I mean, of course, you have sometimes clients that is telling you, please cover this and that event.
Yeah.
But where do you really see like the thin line between, okay, this is like for personal purposes, and this is because I'm a photographer and I can't resist.
Well,
I have
I
to
think
take
every
a shot.
time, just all family stuff. All family stuff's all personal, obviously, and then anything that the company assigns me to, strictly work business stuff. So I mean, but these kind of cameras definitely are very handy. And the thing is as well, like after you're carrying. Like I had all these equipment. Sometimes, if you go away with the family or you out for a night or just so with the kids or whatever, then it's easier just to put one of these in the pocket than it is to take my 4 cameras and bag of lenses.
And just in case that one day, like for private purposes, you might go for a swim, this might be the right camera for you. And Anna, who I would like to say thank you for your question. Thank you. Coming to the next one from Mark. It is a hot topic. The mirrorless concept. That's quite interesting. I mean, we talked about earlier some other segment, but having again a photographer, because one of the main topics when it comes to cameras, when it comes to mirrorless cameras, is always that question: what is better? Is it better to have a mirror or not? For technical reasons, it makes we understand why there is no mirror, but for you as a professional photographer,
for me, it's the only thing that stands out for me is the noise. So. When you're doing, when I did the show jumping with the horses, and I was working around in the back in the stables and that kind of thing, you want to be as quiet as possible because you don't want to. I don't know.
Irritate the horses.
You don't want to freak out a horse.
Yeah.
So that's what they said to me. You don't want to freak out a horse. So you try to keep it as low profile as possible, and also I think with street photography as well, mirrorless. From a friend of mine who uses a mirrorless camera and is a street and news photographer, he finds it so much better to have no noise. You know, you're less intrusive. You get a different response from your subject if they start to hear the shutter firing, and if you just can drop some frames without them even noticing, or you get a different response. You get a more natural response. So there is definitely a big place for mirrorless lenses. But for me, as a sports photographer, and it's a football match or whatever, then it doesn't make that much of a difference to me personally, as long as it takes the photos.
And then it's up to you just to explain once again, perhaps, what the difference is.
Yeah, I mean, the G5, for example, we've worked really, really hard, the technicians and engineers in Japan, to create a better sensor that does cope well in low light conditions. We've now increased that sensitivity to 12,800, whereas the G3 had half of that. So we've made dramatic improvement in that capability. And of course, then there's faster autofocusing. So when you use one of the X lenses, we've got a focus response time of like 0.09 seconds, which is, as we call it, lightning fast. It is very, very fast. So yeah, we're moving in the right direction with the capabilities of the sensor, and I think if it can produce, as we've seen here from Dean's photographs, really sharp, bright, again good in low light there, and some fantastic angles with the lenses that have, you've got so much possibility with a Micro Four Thirds digital SLM camera.
Definitely. Okay. Then thank you for that information. Thank you for that hot topic, Mark. We shall continue with the next one coming from Pan Am. Question for Dean. Do you only work with the G5 or do you have another Lumix with you?
I used the
GH2.
I had the GH2 in the bag, but I never used it.
What?
I kept it as a spare. Pretty much. The G5.
You said, okay, you need to know that Dean was running around at the Olympic Games with equipped with four G5 cameras around him.
Yeah,
so
I had four, and my thought process was that I would have a spare one just in case, if I got torrential rain or I was running between events and I dropped the camera or whatever, just to have a spare one there. But everything you see was a shot on a G5.
Okay.
I did start. Before my fourth body arrived, I did have a G3, but I didn't really use it. I tried to stick with the G5s because obviously that's the newest, biggest, and best.
But it was not because the GH2 came in white or anything like that.
No, it was nothing to do with it was just the fact that I just was getting used to. I wanted to get used to the G5, and I wanted to have that as sort of a, when you get a camera, you want it to be. You don't want to have to think about things. You don't have to think about where buttons are. You don't have to think about, how to, when am I going to, how do I change this? Or, I don't have to go into menus. Everything has to become instinctive, and the only way that happens is by using and using it and using it and using it. So that's the way I worked.
Okay, so the GH2 doesn't have to feel offended. It was just for a practical reason that you stick with the G5.
So yeah.
So Panam, thank you for that question. Coming to the next one from Michel, what's difference is there between? Okay, what difference is there between the G5 and GH?
Well, that's quite easy to answer because
first of all, it does exist.
There is no GH3, so
no GH3.
I can't answer that question. However, the G5, as we've covered, it's brand new. It's recently released, and it's coming out in different countries as we speak. And as we've got an expert here that said that he's enjoyed using it for functions such as its compactability and image quality. So,
okay, then I shall continue with the next one. Coming from John, what do you recommend for portraits?
Portraits.
Yeah.
I mentioned before the 45mm.
Yep.
The big one.
That's the macro. There we go. Let me take that off you.
I would recommend that one. That's the one I used for portraits around the Olympic Park for fans. Mainly due to the fact that it's really bright. So it's
What's the aperture of this one?
It's a 2.8, and there's a 25mm, which is a 1.4.
Yeah, it's got a very low aperture, definitely.
Yeah, I think off the top of my head it was a 1.4. It was a 25mm, which I used as well, but I use this just a bit more because I like to get just that bit closer in, just to do.
And having a reaction.
Hold it up like that. So yeah, that's the 45mm, and that's a Leica lens as well. So everyone knows Leica. Can't go wrong with a Leica lens.
Apparently not.
No.
Thank you, John, for your question. Coming to the next one. A guest would like to know, what's the crop factor on Panasonic lenses?
Very good question, because we're talking in millimeters.
Maybe first of all, you need to explain what cropping really means in terms of photography.
We're talking about millimeters and all these different numbers. The crop factor, basically, the sensor is, well, if we think of a compact sensor, you can fit 8 of these sensors in here into a Micro Four Thirds sensor.
May I come in first? Cropping has to do with the benchmark, isn't it? That the analog film is considered as the benchmark, it's the standard, and from there on,
which is what I'm going to lead on to. Then 35mm, you can actually fit in 2 Micro Four Thirds sensors. So the 35mm standard film size is where we get the crop factor to. So it's basically half, in a way, half the size of a 35mm sensor. So when you
it has nothing to do with the lenses, it has rather to do with the sensor.
Yes, but because the lens mount fits the sensor, it's a lot smaller than, say, a 35mm, and an APS-C sensor, which is used on other cameras. If we look at the 12 to 35mm, if I was to measure this against a 35mm equivalent, then the focal range on this would be 24 to 70. So if I was a digital SLR user with a 35mm sensor and I wanted an equivalent to this, I would be using a 24 to 70mm lens. It's the same focal length, but it's in Micro Four Thirds or digital SLM, it is half size, but it's the same focal length.
So going back to the previous caller, this lens, this 45mm becomes a 90mm lens, which is a good solid portrait lens. So again, that's the difference.
Reason.
And what comes with that as well, Patrice, is obviously the size. And a good one of showing you that equivalent is this. This is a 100 to 300mm lens. So I'm going to test you now. So in 35mm terms, what would that be? So if I have
that would be from a 200 to a 600.
Okay,
then?
so how big would that be? A lot bigger than that?
Well, far bigger than that.
Yes, exactly. So there's an answer there. It's half, it's compact.
So you just have to double the numbers pretty much. That's
yes,
why I was saying like
so
a 200 to 600.
Yep. And you still got the same focal length. So, and not only that, the weight of that is a lot lighter than say the digital SLR equivalent.
So the correct answer would be like the crop factor is equal
2.
2, basically, yeah, half.
So pretty much, I guess that's your answer then. Again, so I learned something about lenses here. Guest visitor. Another one for Dean. Dean, you're quite popular here, I see.
Okay.
How does mirrorless compare to professional photography? I mean, it's two different things. I mean, mirrorless is...
I think we answered this slightly before. For me, professional photography in the first place hasn't to do really with the tool. It's just like how you approach.
Exactly.
It's the eye. You see people. I mean, that was the thing with me. I noticed at the Olympics. People use so many different types of cameras. I mean, I saw an old. I mentioned to you before an old speed graphic, which was an old 1940s camera. So it's not about the. It's not about the camera. It's about how what your eye sees and can your camera do what you want it to do. That's the important thing. So, whether it's mirrorless or mirror, for me it doesn't matter as long as it does the job properly. As long as I can control the light, then I'm happy with that. So, for me, the other thing I was going to mention before actually was about the 1 to 300.
Yep.
Was because it was mirrorless, because it was a mirrorless camera, and because it became a 2 to 600, this lens actually became really good for me for details. So I don't know if some pictures pop up, but like I did
Australians, of course, you had to take a shot of your.
Of course,
your peeps.
Wouldn't I? Exactly. So there's some pictures I did were some detail shots of there was a French runner who had sort of a little detail on her fingernail, or a detail of a horse, some embroidery on a horse on the show jumping. That with the 2 times, to carry a 600mm in the traditional, having a big lens, you just couldn't do it. So this made me get detail shots, which add to your overall set of pictures, which again you wouldn't be able to get with another thing. So, the mirrorless was a big help for me with these, especially with the 1-300. So yeah.
Okay, then before I would like to come with a little anecdote around, I would like to wait for the next poll. Once again, in between, we also ask you different kind of questions. As for example, I can't wait to get my hands on a new, is it either single focal lens or a zoom lens or a macro lens? We have about 20 seconds. What do you guys think which is going to be the most popular? A zoom lens, a macro lens, or a single focal lens?
I would say the zoom.
The zoom?
I would say, I was going to say zoom, but I'll say
single
focal.
You can say the same.
Single focal lens.
You can be wrong.
No,
both of you can be wrong.
Personally, I've been using that a lot recently, and I can understand why.
No, but apparently it's really that 75% are aiming for a zoom lens and only 25% for a macro lens. And a single focal lens is equals zero.
Me?
Yeah, apparently. No, because like we have this funny thing, like, because of the translation. Most of the time, when Germans have the tendency just to ask for a picture, it's not like can I take a picture. It's more really because kann ich ein Bild machen? So can I make a picture?
Okay.
So it's funny because like one time I met like a professional photographer and he told me like, well, you see the difference between an amateur and a professional is the amateur. It's all about to take a picture. The professional is all about making a picture.
Okay.
That's where it's the other way around. I think that's where you really can draw the line between like an amateur and professional. It's because really, oh look, I got a lucky shot. This is the greatest one thing. Or like, yeah, just the way I intended to do it. I think that really makes the professional.
Yes, that's the difference. The difference is that anyone can take an amazing photo. I could give a camera to my nephew, and he's 5 years old, and he could take an amazing picture. But the difference is that you have to do it every day. And that separates the good photographers and the great photographers are the guys that it doesn't matter what event they go to. And there's a lot of the guys that I learnt off at my company, and I'm still learning off, every day. That it doesn't matter where you put them, it doesn't matter what sport you put them at. They're always going to come away with an amazing picture because of experience, because of knowing their cameras, because of just pure knowledge of sports. So that's the difference I see is. The guys that just come away. It doesn't matter what event you put them at. The smallest amateur event or the World Cup final, they'll come away with amazing pictures. So that's the difference between, for me, an amateur and a pro.
And it's also quite reassuring for a photographer in general that the technique in general cannot really take off experience. Yeah,
well, you can't. The experience always comes into it. And like I said before, knowing your camera is such a big part of that because. You see something, you want to be able to control the light, obviously that comes onto the sensor. So, yeah, knowing your camera and making it do what you want it to do is key, definitely key.
All right, then going to the next question, as it comes from Nicholas, and he would like to know, does the HDMI connector of the G5 support live view?
No, it doesn't, unfortunately. You can play back. You can play it back into, say, your television, and you can play back all your photographs that you've taken. If you wanted live view back, say you had it connected to the television, you wanted to see what you were seeing, you would have to connect that via an AV cable, so the composite cable that comes.
But isn't that what an HDMI cable is supposed to do? Just replace the AV, the standard AV cable?
It is, but at the moment that doesn't happen on the G series, and we use that a lot when we're doing product training around the UK in the role that we do, other than here live at IFA, when we're demonstrating to store colleagues, etc. We use it does not come out of the.
But what is the benefit of having a live view anyway?
Well, for training purposes, that's what we use it for. But I suppose.
Yeah, but you could do the same thing by having like a playback afterwards.
Yeah,
you could easily swipe and share it then afterwards when you have it on your smartphone or your tablet PC.
You could, but for complete live view, if we were going to do this now, we wouldn't be able to do it. The feature's not on there at the moment.
Okay. So, Nicholas, this is your answer. Coming to the next question by Andres79 at inbox.lv. How many X lenses are there in the range, Mr. iSteel? Mr. iSteel?
Mr. iSteel.
I think that's his...
I think he's trying to be funny.
Yeah. Okay. X lenses. So we have the 12 to 35. We've got the 14 to 42, we've got the 45 to 150, and the 45 to 175. So that's 4.
4.
Yeah.
4 is the answer, dear Steele. Mr. Steele, 4 is the answer. Coming to the next question from Maya. Does Dean use a tripod for his work, or is he more a handheld type of guy? Tell us something about you.
Both. I use a clamp a lot. I bought just a standard ball head clamp, and then I haven't got the camera here, but you would sort of lock in the ball head, and then you could just adjust it, and obviously use the mirror, the flip screen to find out what I was doing. But yeah, stuff like panning and obviously stationary action, moving action, it's better off obviously handheld. But for stuff like with the slow shutters, for the remotes, all that kind of stuff, it was definitely on. Most of it was done on the ball head. Actually, I think I took my tripod with me, but I don't think I used it actually. It stayed in the locker from the start to finish because of the size of the camera, the ball head, and I could clamp it on railings, on fences, at the fencing. No pun intended, but at the fencing, there was just a gate, and I could just clamp it on the gate. I was shooting with one camera, and then I was firing my remote, doing it with a slower shutter speed to get sort of a blur movement with the ball head. So you need both. But again, like that, that's with a ball head. So you've got a ball head clamp. Set it, I think it was like maybe a second or just less than a second shutter speed, and then just by chance the guy sort of lifted up the bar, and then he sort of dropped the bar behind him, and that's how it made that sort of swooshing shape.
You were there somewhere in the trees?
That was over a bridge, but the bridge was all gated up, so you couldn't actually see through the bridge. But then I had the monopod again, and I stuck it through the top, and then it looks like I'm sort of hanging at the top of the tree. There comes the
benefit of the display
exactly.
Once again.
So, yeah.
Also, what I realized that some of the pictures are also in black and white. When is it for dramatical reasons, or when is it that you choose to take like black and white?
The camera actually does an automatic black and white setting, but I always shot on everything shot on JPEG. But I know some people like shooting on RAW, but just for speed and convenience, I shot everything on JPEG, and I shot everything on the full resolution, the full frame, and then I'd converted them after, just a bit of post-processing into black and white, or different crops. So yeah, I did all that later on. Just for me, I want the picture to be as I saw it, and then I'll just change it later, because some pictures look better in black and white. It's simple as that, isn't it?
Well, I agree, but it's interesting that you're more of a JPEG type of guy.
Yeah,
I thought you were more like a raw.
Kind of a raw. I look like a kind of raw kind of guy.
But all right, then maybe not. So Maya, now you've heard
we always shoot JPEG just for speed, and same here. When the events were on, I would shoot the events. Then I would dart into the office, send some pictures. So Panasonic were getting sort of a live feed through, a live selection of images, and then later on that night, I'd get back at midnight or whatever, and then send the rest of them. So yeah.
Well, apparently you had to do a lot because all the pictures that we've seen here so far. So Maya, coming back to your question, yes, he does both handheld and tripod.
Yes.
Coming to the next one by Robert Raab. Have your Panasonic GH2 camera. I have your Panasonic GH2 camera. Which of these lenses should I buy? The 25mm H-X025E f1.4 or the 50mm in 35 film? Maybe you could.
Okay.
So that's the the 25.
That's the one we talked about before.
Yes.
Which is the equivalent
to 50mm.
Which is again what we talked about before.
So which one should he get?
Well, I think he's recommending that does he think I should buy this one? And I say yes, because that's an equivalent to a standard 50mm, which is great lens. Everyone who owns a camera and is serious about photography should own a 50mm lens. Okay. So there you go.
And you
I recommend.
Of course.
Yeah. And not forgetting, it's actually replicating our field of view as well, where we focus. So if I took a photograph now of you guys, it would it would look like as I see it. So bright, fast, and accurate. So absolutely.
Yeah, 50 mil is a good choice of lens. So yes, we recommend this lens.
It's Dean approved, and Mark says yes too. So thank you, Robert, for your question, and have fun with your camera then. Alan, Lumix G cameras have a walkthrough function that shows you how to take specific pictures, for example, for light stream pictures. Dean, how educative is the information? Did you feel educated by these systems, or?
I didn't. Like I said, I mentioned before that
you switched
pretty
everything
much.
to manual.
Yeah, I turned off the AI. There's an AI function which is something that where the camera does a lot of the thinking for you. That was my first. My first thing was to learn how to turn off all the automatic settings. So yeah, because like I mentioned again before, it's all about controlling light. So I wanted to be able to control that myself, and so I didn't use any of the pre-settings or anything like that. I wanted to do it all myself. The only thing I did was when you've got the miniature function, then you can control it. You don't have as much control over it, but you can just control it a little bit. But yeah, it's all for me full manual all the time.
But other than that, what I think is very helpful is the site that you mentioned earlier today, where people can actually really see the work of others, including
and
also Dean's work, where it's also written down which lenses have been used, which setting have been chosen.
And also, Patrice, you've also got the people that are using that camera. They're not they're not like just current cameras. They're going back to our G1s, our G10s a few years ago. And I mean, I have to say, some of the photography that's on there from older cameras are, they're fantastic. It gives you all the settings, and it also gives the opportunity for the user to blog and say what they've done and how they've done it and how they enjoyed it, etc. So, Dean obviously made it clear about the manual side of it, but the intelligent side of it, you just press that button, and it's not a question of guessing. If it does guess it, the process is guessing very, very well. So gradually, as you become more confident with our cameras, then you can gradually take that off and become more creative with it.
Definitely.
Also, what I like to recommend is really just watch a lot of visual material. Watch paintings, movies, all sorts of other type of pictures, just to have, first of all, just to kind of develop an eye for things, and then find your own style. I think
it's like
that's the best education you can have, experience.
Without a doubt, with all creative industries, whether it be music or like you said, painting, whatever, they're always inspired by other fields and other things. So, music is not inspired by music; it's inspired by real life situations. So, same sort of thing, definitely.
Exactly. So, Alan, thank you for this question. Coming to the next one by Amanda Hummelsums. What does the term? Yeah, really, Hummelsums. What does the term a Micro Four Thirds system mean? I mean, you explained it prior also. Yeah,
Micro Four Thirds, we got the name from an older camera analog size with basically the tube of an old camera style. The size of the tubing was 4/3 of an inch. So we've got that name from that. So that identifies our sensor as Micro Four Thirds. Likewise, APS-C and 35mm terms are different. So really, it's just to identify the sensor that we use, as do other companies such as Olympus use the same, so that the end user, then can identify that. Well, if I use a Micro Four Thirds, say Panasonic camera, then I can mix that with, say for example, Olympus and other third-party other companies with adapters. But I would recommend that you obviously check first before you do that. Okay. But Olympus and Panasonic were one of the original creators of Micro Four Thirds sensor.
And there you go with the answer, Amanda. Coming now to the last and final question for this segment. Steve Eller would like to know, how do you shoot fast action indoors when there is not so much light available? Either bring some light with you.
That's pretty tricky. That's one of the tricks, the skills, really, of in so many football matches where, everyone sees, the big teams, and they've got, massive stadium lights and all that kind of thing. But then you do an FA Cup match or something like that where you've got, it feels like it's being lit by candles. It's like there's hardly any light. One of the things I like to do, one of the tricks to get around it, I think, is to try and do some slow shutter stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So to do some panning shots, not to go for the standard 2 men in a ball action or whatever it may be. You know, to try and do something different, slow shutter, or like I said before, clamping it, like I did with the weightlifting photo that was on before. Clamp it, 1 second exposure, and then trying to go for a different pattern, a different style, it's something different in a different kind of image. So, there are ways around it, definitely, and you don't always have to just go for the standard, like whether it be taekwondo, 2 men kicking each other. You could try like with a slow shutter again, and trying to get sort of swirls and that kind of thing. So, yeah, there are ways around it. So, that's what I would recommend. Try something different.
Try something different. All right, then, Steve, this has been your answer. Thank you also for your question. This is it for this segment. Thank you so much, guys, for your expertise. Once again, I've been learning a lot of your knowledge, which can also be found on the Panasonic side.
Yes.
Yeah, on the Panasonic, currently on the UK website, and I think also if you visited it through your own countries, other countries you can.
Exactly. There will you find all the information needed to learn a bit more about Dean, and hopefully also we're going to see some more pictures of you because you're going to head tomorrow to London.
More. There'll be plenty more coming, definitely.
Heading for the Paralympics. Dean and Mark, thank you so much. And I would like, again, just to remind you that you still have the chance just to win one of the beautiful prizes that we are giving out every day. This time it's about the Lumix G5 compact camera, just one. I mean, not like Dean, who had like 4 of them while running around the Olympic Games, but one should be totally sufficient. We would like to know from you, the Lumix G5 is a lightweight camera with a built-in flash for extra mobility. How much does the compact system camera G5 weigh? Is it A, approximately 396 grams, or is it B, approximately 693 grams? It's up to you. Wish you all the luck, and hopefully going to see you again at 4 o'clock when we're going to have a segment about home AV. See you later. This is Patrice Bouidibela for Panasonic Live at IFA 2012. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.